Joining me now to look at the budget and its political impact is the Toronto Star's Queen's Park Bureau Chief, Robert Benzie. Robert Benzie, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Martin.
I know this is a busy time. You're filing on this budget, but first of all, you've been waiting. You've seen some of the advanced warnings. You've seen some of the advanced billing. What's your biggest take from this budget right now? What strikes you the most?
I think red ink and blue license plates would be my biggest takeaway. There is a lot of deficits projected for Ontario for the next 4 years. And I think a lot of people, after Premier Doug Ford's election last year, thought that the belts would be tightened and budgets would be balanced. And the Tories are going to run a deficit until 2023-24, which is 1 year after the next election.
Is that that's a surprise for some of his constituents, but is that a surprise economically, given the size of the deficit?
Well, they've inflated the deficit by using accounting changes. So the deficit is actually probably could theoretically be $5 billion lower than the 10+ billion that it is projected to be next year. But even aside from all of that, I mean, the economy in Ontario is performing pretty well. This is not the economic basket case, I think, that the rhetoric sometimes coming out of Queen's Park likes to suggest. So I think that Vic Fideli's budget is very much staying the course on a lot of files. It's, this could have been a Liberal budget, some people would say.
Okay, it's interesting to say, because it could be a Liberal budget, but of course the opposition there in Ontario are saying they're focusing on the cuts. What about the spending cuts? 13 different departments have cuts. Yeah. How politically difficult are they? How manageable are they? How saleable are they?
Well, this is the thing. The proof will be in the pudding, because they've cut the department budgets of 13 ministries. Some of them have been cut in half. And is that going to mean huge job cuts down the road? It could. But there is nothing in today's budget other than those projected numbers suggesting that there's some mass cull of bureaucrats coming. Mr. Ford is one of his advisors was telling me, is actually not as much of a conservative as he is as a populist. And so I think that he wants to do what he thinks the people want done, not necessarily what ideologues want done.
It's interesting if you look at the departments that have been cut. I mean, you mentioned by 50% Indigenous Affairs, the provincial Indigenous Affairs, 50% cut in that. So you talk about, who are his constituents. He's also cutting environment, natural resources, and the Attorney General. Are those surprises there?
Yeah, I mean, there's some big cuts. I mean, the Green leader, Mike Schreiner, was saying today that we should be very concerned about the cuts to the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Natural Resources, because these are ministries that, do oversight to make sure that people aren't polluting and doing things in the wrong way. Ministry of Labor is getting cut. Is that going to mean fewer labor inspectors going into workplaces? We don't know.
There's a lot of things, though, too, that have been advertised as goodies, good news items here, like dental care for seniors, for low-income seniors, very big tax rebate for childcare, up to 75% for childcare. And I'm also looking at one list is 10% cut to tuition rates, 15,000 new long-term beds. Are those in the scope of an Ontario economy? Are those big offers? Are those big achievements?
I think they're going to be welcomed by the people who receive them, but there's no across-the-board tax cut in here. There's no tax increase either, but we haven't really had significant tax increases in Ontario in many years. I mean, we've had stay the course by the previous Liberal governments as well. We haven't had tax relief. I think some people were expecting some tax relief. They didn't get it. But we got new license plates, Martin. Here's the new Ontario license plate. And our new slogan, a place to grow. Okay, you could argue it's a place to grow spending.
Okay, well, I was going to say there's a lot of goodies in this that are very symbolic too, right? Because you just showed us the new license plate. There's a new trillium.
This would be one of them.
Yeah, a new trillium design. And there's also going to be a lot about alcohol. Tell us about that. What's this fixation about alcohol in Ontario?
Yeah, the fixation of alcohol is interesting because neither Premier Doug Ford nor Vic Fideli are actual drinkers. They don't drink alcohol. But they certainly seem to like to talk about it a lot. So in Ontario, they will soon change licensing laws so that a bar can open and serve alcohol at 9 a.m. Now it's 11 a.m. And they're going to change, allow tailgating at Ottawa Senators games or Ottawa Rough Riders games. Sorry, Ottawa Red Black games.
Right.
Toronto Argonaut games.
More drinking.
Like that. They'll allow tailgating.
More drinking in municipal parks.
Well, and if a municipality like Toronto chooses to change bylaws, people will be allowed to drink in parks, which it makes sense, the liberalization of these laws. Remember, you can smoke cannabis anywhere in public now. So it's kind of crazy. You could be at the park and someone at the next picnic table is smoking cannabis, and then you get a ticket for having a glass of rosé with your, fried chicken or whatever you're having. So I think that's probably something that's a change that is welcome, will be welcome in Ontario. I mean, people in Quebec have been doing these things for many years without the end of society and a breakdown in society or anything like that.
What are we to make of the fact that Premier Ford came out with a major spending announcement yesterday, the day before the budget? What was it, sort of like $28.5 billion in total in new subways and transit infrastructure the day before the budget, and that was not negotiated with Ottawa yet or with the City of Toronto. What do you make of that? Is that to try to, I don't know, sweeten the pot before?
Yeah. It was a classic pre-budget big bonanza spending announcement. The interesting thing I thought about that was that Mr. Ford said that if the federal government and the City of Toronto don't want to participate, the Ontario government will backstop the entire thing. That's very ambitious. $28.5 billion in transit is a huge expansion, new subway lines and so on. And it would be welcome here in Toronto where the gridlock is terrible. Having said that, transit projects always go over budget, so it will not come in at $28.5 billion. If it's ever built, it will cost much, much more. So
how is this budget going to sell? If for the fiscal Conservatives it's moving slowly and cautiously and not incredibly rapidly towards deficit reduction and elimination, and if there are some goodies for certain constituencies, and if there's a lot of departmental cuts, how's this going to sell?
I think this will be an easier budget for the Tories to sell to voters who aren't always voting Conservative. So I think that it will seem to some as quite moderate, notwithstanding the cuts to the department budgets and so on. This is not going to be the kind of cut and slash budget that some opponents had feared that it would be. Having said that, I think people on the right of the political spectrum are going to be losing their minds because Vic Fideli is going to be running red ink for years and years and years. The Tories go on about how the provincial debt is $340 billion. Well, they're going to add another $40 billion onto it before they balance the books. So I think that the far right or the fiscal conservative side of the political spectrum will have a problem with this budget. But there's more votes in the center and in the other side of this political spectrum, and this will be saleable. I mean, there are a lot of red Tories in Mr. Ford's cabinet. Mr. Ford himself is a populist, not really an ideological conservative. So this is not Mike Harris Redux like a lot of people thought it would be, 1995 all over again.
Okay, I want to thank you for taking the time. When do you get your new license plate?
I think I might stick with my old white one, Martin, although this one is nice double blue. Tory blue.
Tory blue, yeah. Thank you very much, Robert Benzie.
Thanks, Martin.